Hello and welcome back to Project Pro. In the previous lecture, we have seen all about the data integration with different Azure services, where we have integrated our Azure storage with the Data Factory, as well as we have connected our SQL database and utilized the Azure Databricks for data integration purposes. But this lecture is all about monitoring. So here we are going to see about the monitoring and management aspect of Azure, in which we'll see like how to monitor data factory pipelines as well as the activities, and also we can configure like a diagnostic logins, as well as we can set the different alerts and manage the triggers and event based pipelines. So this is going to be very fun. So without further any ado, let's get into it. Okay, so in the monitoring we are going to cover these topics. We need to first discuss about what we need to monitor and what are the resources we need to monitor in Azure Data Factory. We will also see like different approaches for monitoring your Azure Data Factory pipelines. So either you can use like a Data Factory monitoring, as well as you can use the Azure Monitor to monitor all your Azure resources. So in the Data Factory monitoring, we will see how you can create alerts as well as rerun your failed pipelines and see the status of your already executed pipelines as well as the triggered runs. And we can also see how we can recover from the failure and reporting on the metrics. And in Azure Monitor, which is like a broader tool, and it can monitor all the Azure resources in your resource group, and we can see like log analytics and the Data Factory analytics using the Azure Monitor. So as I already told you that in the monitoring there are two main approaches that you can use to monitor your Azure Data Factory pipelines. Azure Data Factory Monitor, and the second one will be using the Azure Monitor for all your Azure resources. So first let's discuss about what we need to monitor. The first one is Azure Data Factory resources. So we are going to see how we can monitor our Azure Data Factory resources like the pipelines as well as the integration runtimes, and we will see like the status of our trigger runs, and we will debug all the executed pipeline runs in our Azure Data Factory as well as the activity runs. So if we will also see like the dashboards in the Azure Data Factory monitor, where we can see like the failed pipelines, the succeeded pipelines, the success rate, as well as we can rerun our pipelines from there if it is failed. So these things we are going to monitor. So if we talk about the Data Factory monitor, this will give us like the ability to monitor the status of our pipeline runs as well as the trigger runs that we have already created. So this can be also used for rerunning our failed pipelines as well as the triggered runs, as well as we can give us, so we can get like a alert. So we can set a different alerts based on the level metrics. So we can set different alerts so that we can get notified wherever there is an issue in our Azure Data Factory runs. So as well as it will provide like a base level metrics as well as the logs, but it has like a limitation, like it will only store the data for 45 days. So if your pipeline runs are older than 45 days, then that data will be vanished. So for older runs, this is not the most effective way to monitor your Azure Data Factory. So there comes the Azure Monitor into picture. So it will give us like the ability to route our diagnostic data to the other data storage solution. So it is like a step up from the Azure Data Factory monitor and provides a richer diagnostic data. So you can run like a complex queries and custom reporting, where you can build like a Power BI dashboard to get a high level idea and effectively monitor all your Azure resources present in your subscription. And also it will give us like a ability to report across multiple data factories. So if we use like a Azure Data Factory, then that will only give us the capability to monitor single data factory at a time. But if you use Azure Monitor, you can effectively monitor all the data factories at same time. So this is all about the Azure Monitor. So the next thing would be like discussing the Data Factory monitor. So let's switch over to the Data Factory and let's get started. Okay, so this is the home of our Azure Data Factory. So all you need to do is go into the monitor tab. So I hope you already seen that. So as you can see, we got the dashboard, which is like the first option. So dashboard is also a very effective way to monitor and get a high level idea of your pipeline as well as the trigger runs. So as you can see, we can also set some filter like the end time range, which is very helpful. So if you want the pipeline runs for the last 24 hours or the last 7 days, or you can also set a custom one. So in the custom ones you need to provide the from date as well as the to date to monitor all your pipeline runs. And also you can give the time, your time zone as well, so that it will give us the precise readings. So as you can see, we got the pipeline runs. So we got the 5 succeeded, 7 failed. We got the activity runs where we got say 13 succeeded and the 7 failed. And we got the trigger runs where there is only one succeeded run present in the trigger. So this is all about the dashboard. So this is very simple and gets a high level idea, and also you can refresh it to get the latest information. And also you can get different options like the line chart, or else you can get pie chart, but this you cannot modify or customize as per your requirement. So we are going to also see how we can create custom dashboard as per your requirement. So if you go into the pipeline runs, in the pipeline runs we will get all the pipelines. As you can see, you can set the status. So if you select all the pipelines here, you will get all the succeeded, failed, and all the statuses of your pipelines. And also you can see like it can filter it based on the ID of your pipeline as well as the name of your pipeline. So this will come into handy if you have many pipelines present in your Azure Data Factory. And it will also give us the same capability that we already discussed, where we can set the end time range as well as the time zone. And as well as in the pipeline name, we can search based on the different pipelines that you already created. And also you can set the runs, like here there is all runs present, but you can get the latest run. If you have like single pipeline, so which if that pipeline failed, but if you rerun that pipeline, it if got succeeded, then it will only show the latest run of that pipeline. And also you can see the filter for triggered by. So if it is a manual trigger, or if it is like an execute copy activity, whatever it is, you can filter it based on that, and also add your custom filters. So this was all about the pipeline runs. So similarly, pipeline runs, you can go into the triggered runs. So in the triggered runs, as you can see, we got the all triggers. So we only got one trigger present currently. But if you have like different type of trigger, like the schedule trigger as well as the tumbling window, but we have the storage event trigger present, so that we can see only one pipeline run and it got succeeded. But if you have like custom event as well, you can track and monitor that effectively. So that was all about the triggered runs. So if you go into the change data capture in the CDC, since we don't have anything set up here, so it is not showing anything. And in the integration runtimes, we only have our integration runtimes, which is Azure type. But if you have like a Azure SSIS or the Airflow integration runtime, that also you can see if it is up and running and if there is any issue in that integration runtime. So if you go into the alerts and metrics, this is where the things gets interesting. So if you want like a effective monitoring, then you can create a new rule. So in the alert rules, what you can do is you can give the name and severity of your alert, as well as you can add the criteria, what criteria you need to add here based on the pipeline run. And you can configure the notification, like if you will get the email or the SMS or the voice notification if anything happens to your pipeline, so that you can enable, and that we are also going to see next. So this was all about like the basic overview of our data factory monitoring. Okay, so now we are going to create our new rule alert, so that you will get notified whenever there is an issue with our Azure Data Factory pipeline or the trigger runs. So what we are going to do is we are going to click on new alert rule, and we are going to give the alert rule names. We are going to set it as like trigger fail rule, and we are going to select the severity. And also we can give like a description of what it is doing. So I'll keep it as blank. So next thing would be I'll have to select the severity. We are going to give the severity 0 because this is like the highest priority alert. So the 0 means that the severity of it is the highest. So we are going to select that, and here we need to create the target criteria as well as you need to configure the notification. So the first thing would be like adding the criteria. So we'll click on that. So in the criteria, we already have the metrics present, which is set by Azure. So we have multiple set of metrics present which we can select. So whatever we are going to do is we can give like get the notification for every failed trigger. So as you can see here, we have the failed trigger run metrics. So we are going to click on continue here, and here you can show the history of our failed trigger. So as you can see, we nothing got over last 24 hours. We can't see anything failed for our trigger. So as you can see, you got the name as well as the failure type of our alert, so that selecting these values will help us filtering to the right time series. So as you can see, we have like the name of our trigger, which is like execute copy activity. So I'll select that, and the failure type is like we have like the user error or the system error or the bad gateway, but we are going to select all this stuff. So we are going to get notified if any of this failure type occurs. And also now we need to set our logic now. So if you want to get the alert if the pipeline fails for a consecutive 2 runs, then that you need to specify here. So if your pipeline runs is greater than 0, which means that if your pipeline fails once, then you will get the notification. So you can, if you select it as a 1 here, then you will get notified whenever there are 2 consecutive failures of our pipelines. But here we will select it as 0 only, so that you'll get notified for a single failure of our trigger. And also you can set the period, like if you want to evaluate based on the last minute of our trigger, then you can select that, but we can select that over the last 1 hour. So if our trigger fails over the last 1 hour, then you will get notified, and you can select the frequency as well. So I'll keep it as default and add the criteria now. So now we got the target criteria set. The next thing would be we need to configure our notification. So you need to click on plus here, and here we need to create a new notification here. So the action group will be like, we will see it as COVID reporting alert, and the short name would be same like COVID reporting. And here you need to add the notification. So in the notification we can say the action as fail trigger, and here you can get the notification via email, as well as you can get the notification via SMS, as well as the Azure app push notification. And also you can send the voice messages. So this will be like Azure sends a voice message to your phone number, but I'll only going to select the email option, and here you need to set up your email. So I'll give my email here, so that if every pipeline fails, then I'll get notified to this email ID, and I'll say it as add notification. Okay, so once you have the target criteria as well as the notification set, what we can do is we can just create the alert route right away. Okay, so as you can see, our COVID reporting alert has been enabled. So we will get notified whenever our trigger will fail using the email. So what you can do is you can, as you can see, this is like enabled. So if you want to disable it for some time, so you can click on this as well, but we will keep it as enabled for this. So this is how you can create your alerts using the Azure Data Factory Monitor. Okay, so here we have seen all about Azure Data Factory Monitor, but in dashboards what we can do is we can only see a limited kind of information. So as you can see, we only got like the pipeline activity and the trigger. This is not that much helpful information that we can get using the Azure Data Factory dashboard. So what we can do is we can head back to the Azure Monitor and see how we can effectively monitor your Azure Data Factory resources using the Azure Monitor. So what you can do is you can go to home and click on to the Azure services and the Azure Monitor. And the Azure Monitor, all you can do is you can go quickly into the metrics here. So in the metrics, it will be like you can select a scope for your resources. So here we have our subscription as well as all the resources and the resource groups. So in the resource group, we have all our resources present in the COVID reporting RG, and in here you can select the Azure Data Factory. So you can see like apply. So as you can see, we can create our own dashboard as per our requirement. So here we have selected a scope for our resource group, as well as we have given the metric as a data factory, and we have the different metrics present. So we have like the metrics for airflow, as well as we have the like the SSIS integration runtimes, but all you can do is we can click on the failed activity runs or the failed pipeline runs. So let's do the failed pipeline runs here. So as you can see, it also got the option for aggregation, so here the count will make more sense. So as you can see, we in the last 24 hours we don't have any failed pipeline runs, but if we go and see like the last 30 days, as you can see we got like the 2 pipeline runs as well as the 5 pipeline runs present. So this is how you can monitor your failed pipeline runs, and you can create this dashboard. So you can just go to the line chart, and if you don't like the line chart, then you can go to the bar chart as well. So you can see like the bar charts as well as we got like the scatter charts here. So this is how you can effectively create the dashboard here. So what we can do is we can just save this dashboard to our already created dashboard. So as you can see, we can pin this dashboard to our existing dashboard, which is like private dashboard, and we got like this COVID reporting dashboard present, and we can just pin it. So once we go into the home and the dashboard tab, as you can see we got our failed pipeline runs metrics for our Azure Data Factory. So this is how you can just play around with it and create your own dashboard so that you can effectively monitor your Azure Data Factory resources. Okay, so now let's discuss about the Azure Monitor and its diagnostic analytics and how we can set it using the diagnostic setting. So let's switch over to the Azure Monitor and let's get started. We have seen how we can create a dashboard for your Azure Data Factory using Azure Monitor. But now let's go on to the Monitor now. And in Monitor, what we're going to do is we are going to go into the diagnostic settings. So just click on the diagnostic settings here, and you got the subscription, and you need to select the resources for which you need to create this setting. So all you can do is you can select the Data Factory here, and in Data Factory we got like the resources over here, and we have selected the Data Factory and the resource group. So here what we can do is we can add the diagnostic settings. So we'll click on add diagnostic settings, and here we got different activities. So we can see like all the logs present for all our resources. So we have different categories, but for our use case we don't have any SSIS packages deployed, so we can just unselect those. So we can just, and also we don't have any airflow resources present, and we can only get the logs generated for our pipeline activity runs as well as the trigger runs, as well as we can select like the all metrics. So we need like all the metrics present for these pipelines and trigger runs, and we can see like the destination details here. So in the destination details we can select like we can send this to our log analytics workspace. So we need to create the log analytics workspace here, so we need to provide those details. But if you want to select it and archive it to a storage account, so we already have a storage account present, which is like a COVID reporting tutorial 23. So this will store the data in the storage account. And if you have like the event hub resources present, then you need to give like the event hub namespace that you have created, and you can stream this diagnostic log to the event hub, and also you can send it to the partner solution. So but our use case, archiving to a storage account will make more sense here. So we will select this storage account here, which is like our blob container, and here we can get all these logs generated, and here as you can see we got the retention days. So in Azure Data Factory you will get only the logs will only be present for 45 days, but you can save this to your Azure storage account for more time. So you can see like if you need to store the pipeline runs log for 45 days, and if you want to save like the trigger runs log for 60 days, then that also will give us the capability to provide a custom retention days for your logs. As well as if you place it at 0, then this will be stored at unlimited time. So as you can see, this only applies to a storage account, and this retention policy will be like 1 to 365 days. And if you do not want to apply, it will retain the data forever. So this is why you need to select it for 0 days. But for our use case, let's give it as only 1 day. So we'll select it for 1 only. And at last we can just give the diagnostic setting name. So here we'll see it as COVID reporting, that's it, and we just need to save that. So this updating diagnostic now, and there you go, we have successfully updated our diagnostic for our Azure Data Factory. But to be able to validate this, we need some pipeline runs in our Azure Data Factory. So let's head back to our Azure Data Factory and go to the pipeline runs, and let's re-trigger some of the pipelines. So we'll select this as well as we can select that. So we are rerunning some of the pipelines. Okay, so a couple of our trigger pipelines are completed now, so we can head back to our storage account to see if it has generated any logs there. So we can go to our storage accounts here, and in storage account we have our COVID reporting tutorial 23. Okay, so as you can see in the activity logs, we have seen the event initiated by the Azure Monitor system, and here as you can see in our storage account that logs are already present. But now let's talk about the log analytics and how we can create a log analytics workspace for Azure Data Factory. So to do that, all you have to do is go into the Microsoft Azure and create a resource, and in here we can search for log analytics workspace. So we'll see as log analytics workspace. Just click on that and just click on create. So in here we need to select the subscription as well as the resource group. So we have like only one subscription, and after that we can select the resource group, which is like COVID reporting RG, and the name of the instance, so we'll see as COVID reporting WS. So we can just rename this to the guidelines as per the guidelines, and the region will be Central India for me, which is like the closest one. So we'll not select any tags or anything, we'll just review and create it. So the review is completed, it is running the final validation, and there you go, the validation has been passed. And let's create that log analytics workspace. So it is just deploying that, and as you can see the deployment has been succeeded. So we have successfully deployed our Azure Analytics workspace. Just go into the Azure Monitor. So let's go into the Monitor now, and in Monitor let's go into the Diagnostic Settings. So in the Diagnostic Settings, we'll again click on the Azure Data Factory here, and in Azure Data Factory we can add these Diagnostic Settings. So what we are going to do is we are going to select the pipeline activity runs as well as the runs log and the trigger runs log, as well as we can select the all metrics here, and we can send this to the log analytics workspace. So since we already have the log analytics workspace present, as you can see we have the COVID reporting WS and the region, and here we are going to see as a destination table. So in Azure Diagnostics, if our table is like a resource specific, then it will be a good way to monitor your Azure resources, because that will not put it in a single table, it will create a resource specific tables, so that will be easier for you to do analytics. So all you can do is we can just give it any name here. So we'll save it as reporting WS and just click on save. Okay, so the update is completed. So we have like the two diagnostic settings present for our Azure Data Factory. Okay, so since we have created our log analytics workspace, let's go into that and let's see how it works. So we'll go into our COVID reporting WS, which is only created log analytics workspace for us. So if we go into like the logs, so there are different queries that they will provide, and you can directly run it to get the meaningful result and the log analytics. But you will just click on this, and in here we will select the scope here. So in the scope we got like our Azure subscription, so we'll select that, and in the resource group we'll select our COVID reporting RG, and in here we can select like a data factory. So we have selected the data factory here and click on apply. And in schema, as you can see, we already got the data factory related tables created. So since we already executed our some of the pipeline runs, so that will have some data in it. If we just double click on this, it will get the ADF activity run table. So what you can do is to get the count in this table, we can do is at pipe count. That's it. And if we run it, as you can see, we got like 44 count present in here. So if you want to see the data, all you can do is only just go into that and run it. And as you can see, we got all these logs generated over here. So this is like this queued or in progress. So this all the statuses of our pipelines are present in this table. And similarly, all you can do is you can go into the any other, which is like a pipeline run. So we can go into the pipeline run now, and in pipeline run we can get the counts. So in the count and run it, Yeah, we got the 14 records present. So if you want to see the data again, you can just directly run that table and you got all the data. So here is like the operation name as well as the category, which is like a pipeline run, the correlation ID and the level, as well as it get all the information like the status of that, as well as like the start date, the end date of that, as well as the failure type, which is like the user error here and the pipeline name here. So you got all this data present here. So this is how you can use like the log analytics workspace to store all the data to get the meaningful insights out of it. Okay, so in this lecture we have seen all about monitoring and management your Azure Data Factory, where we have monitored our Azure Data Factory pipeline and we have configured like the diagnostic logins as well as the alertings, and we have seen how we can manage the triggers as well as the event based pipelines. So this was all about today's lecture. In the next lecture we are going to see about like some of the advanced concept and like the Data Factory version 2, where we'll see like the overview of this Data Factory version 2 and what are the enhancement it has brought onto the table, and we'll see how we can use like the Azure Data Factory templates for reusability. And also we are going to see like the CI/CD pipelines as well as the DevOps practices for Azure Data Factory. So the next lecture will be releasing on 17th of July. So stay tuned and let me know in the comments if you face any difficulties. Thank you for watching.